It's here, people. The long-awaited epic return of this guy. This guy. This guy. Okay, so Ibuki is here, people. Deleters, Link Joker, have entered the fray, and it was kind of a pretty paint-by-numbers way to do it. Alright, so first up, let's talk about the genuinely interesting thing they did at the beginning of this, and that is Morikawa wants, what's-his-face, Kai on his team, so that way he can finally get his chance to nut all over Korin, and, this I kind of liked. I like the idea of just a normal, average high school thing of they just want him on the team for his power, but he just kind of has no interest. It's different from Misaki not wanting to join the team, who wanted it but in her head couldn't bring herself to. This felt uniquely different in that Kai is just not social. He just doesn't really like being around people. We've spent enough time exploring this that I could tell that immediately from his response of just like, yeah, get away from me. Then we move on to the scene in the card shop, which also had a nice little bit I like. Just a bit of Aichi and Kai playing each other for funsies and just sort of talking casually. I like that Aichi no longer has that sort of squirrely tone to his voice when he talks to Kai that some of us interpret as romantic and some of us interpret as him just being like nervous. I like the idea that Aichi can now just talk to Kai like a friend, just like a normal human being, a casual human being, and this kind of comes into play a little bit later. We also get to see how the rest of the scene with Ibuki went when the rest of Aichi and crew saw him before, and this is kind of where our problems begin. So my issue with Ibuki's introduction is that when you just sort of take it for what it is, it's essentially just the same thing they were doing with Ren. Ibuki is made out to just seem like a nutcase who is obsessed with Blaster Blade, and he just kind of talks about like how weak everyone is and how you should be vicious and strong. It's basically the same thing they were doing with Ren. Like, literally, like, they just kind of put it on repeat. Now, look, Ibuki, from what I saw in G, and from what I can tell, this does not get better, Ibuki doesn't have much of a personality, but it's G, so that's normal. So you kind of have, like, an opportunity to kind of fix this character, and just kind of, nothing they did here really did that for me, especially because then the other elements of the character just feel like things we've seen done before. Rather, it's necessarily done better or worse is not the thing, but it's, you're on your second season, now's the time to do a little bit more. Once again, we have another character who has a connection to Kai's childhood, and Kai's gonna enter the battle to fix whatever weird supernatural problem is with him. And it's kind of a shame, because, well, I would have liked something, like, this is sort of hard to explain, but not every character needs to be connected to every other character. You can pull that off once or twice, but the thing is, Vanguard works from being a smaller story and a smaller world, and when you make it that there's one character who's the center of the universe, and everyone revolves around him in the way everyone seems to revolve around Kai, it just doesn't feel organic or natural. Like, you can make it that Ren was a childhood friend who sort of went down the wrong path and needs to be brought back, but now they're just doing it again, and now the only sort of difference is, well, this is the guy who taught us Vanguard, some kid who really needs a goddamn haircut. Like, okay, I get it. You didn't want it to be spoiled for people who haven't read the manga that Ibuki was their childhood friend, because this kid was in, like, ending 1 or something. But, come on. You could do something a little bit different. And then when they reveal his whole thing with his Psychwalia, that did not help at all, really. So the gimmick with his Psychwalia, I guess, is he somehow makes your interest in Vanguard go away, or he takes Vanguard out of your memories. I don't know what this is supposed to be, because when we see it happen to the minor character's like, oh, what is this? Why would I need it? Okay, so it's memory erasing. But then at the end, Tetsu's just like, my connection to my deck has been severed. What? The thing about Vanguard, and I sort of brought this up with my last point, is that beyond just being a small story, this is also a world where, for the average everyday person, there is no spiritual connection to the cards. Like, yes, they're from Planet Cray, yes, they have deeper meaning with, like, some stuff, But for the most part, in the universe of Vanguard, it's just a card game. And the only reason it affects some people differently is because Psychwalia can be manifested through it. Now, as we're about to learn, obviously, with the Takudo backstory, there is a connection between Psychwalia and Vanguard, but for the average everyday person, it's just a thing you do. So when you make it that someone takes away your big spiritual connection to it, it doesn't really have any significant meaning in this universe because, well, there is no big spiritual connection. In the second season of the original, as bad as it is, they knew how to do it right, at least for the first couple episodes, with the Royal Paladin, the Kagero, and the Shadow Paladins going away. They didn't do this big epic thing, but just the idea that there was someone who had the power to alter everyone's minds in such a big way has this nice creepiness to it and makes our heroes feel a lot smaller in the grand scheme of things. This was your chance to do that again, only not fail later. You could have done something a little bit more interesting when Tetsu lost. Instead of him just staring for 5 seconds and declaring, "My connection with the cards is gone." What does that mean? And look, yes, they'll explain it, they'll talk about it, but I don't want them to explain it or talk about it. I want them to show me. I want that moment Tetsu loses whatever the connection with Vanguard is supposed to be, to have this visual experience. Similar to how when Ren used his Psychwalia on Misaki when they fought. That scene was intense, it was scary, it brought Misaki down to a lower level, it showed how much stronger Ren was. It's all just done through the simple visuals of a scared girl in a weird dark castle. That is a very simple thing you can do, and you can do that here, but, well, they kind of don't really do it, and now we're just kind of left scratching our heads wondering what this is all supposed to mean, and I don't really know what they're going to do to resolve it. Well, they'll figure it out, but I feel like it's not going to have the impact it should, because you didn't really do anything to make it feel scary. The last couple little things that happened was Ibuki in his scene brought up how rare Blaster Blade is, which just makes me wonder where did Aichi get the other 3? Like, again, does everything have to be connected to Blaster Blade? The other thing that I thought was sort of cool was I liked the idea that Takudo saw what was going on through Asuka's eyes. Like, I just think it brings up some interesting things you can do with that. Like, I'd love for it to be, what if, like, shut up, phone. What if Takudo is controlling Asuka, it's Suiko. I'm sorry I said the name wrong. Is he controlling Suiko? Is Suiko got more control over the situation than we've been given information of? Are they communicating telepathically? Is it a hive mind? There's a lot of cool stuff you can really do with this setup, and hopefully they'll rebound and figure out some clever ways to do with it, because I'd love for it to be that we got 2 different evil factions going on here. I think you could do a lot of fun and different ideas with that. The only other thing is Azel is sitting on a throne in space, but Azel has white hair and doesn't really look like Azel. Okay. Shut up. I don't really have an explanation for this or anything to say about it. It's just there and it looks kind of stupid. But that was that. Sorry I went a little bit more negative this week, but I kind of felt like a couple of weird decisions were made here and they probably could have been handled a bit better. But what did you think? Tell me about that below. And as for the Vanguard question of the week, Ultra Rare is here. The set that brings us 3 clans that, in my opinion, sort of start just the natural power creep. Like, we've obviously been getting a bunch of Excel clans, bunch of Force, bunch of Protect, but I feel like this is the first time we're getting clans that just sort of take their imaginary gift and kind of just push it to that next level. Which I'm kind of excited for, because they've just sort of been adding decks, but I don't feel like the meta ever feels that different. So I'm interested to see what happens. But what do you think is the best clan coming out of this? What do you think will have the most shot up impact in the TCG? Personally, I think it's actually going to be Angels, even though I know Neo Nectar is the #1 Force clan in the OCG. I just think the TCG feels like a place where they would abuse Angel Feather's abilities more. Tell me that below. And as always, click to like, click to subscribe, and join me next week where we get Takudo's weird, hopefully not screwed up backstory.